Good morning, Yvette Lee
Yeah.
Bowser. How you doing today?
Good morning, Randy. I'm well, thanks. I'm tired. I'm on your coast, but I'm like, wow, I just got here.
Oh, no, the jet lag is real. Did you land
The
like at
jet
6
lag
a.m.
is
this
real.
morning?
No, no, no. I landed late last night. My
Oh,
flight was delayed by a few hours, so I
no,
got to sleep even later because I'm here to see my best friend from college and like
Oh,
40 years of friendship.
oh.
Um, I know. So then we're like, oh, we're going to go to bed. No, we're not. We're going to
We
be
have
up
to
all night.
talk.
Like just beginning the in-person catch-up and laugh-a-thon. I mean,
Oh God, that is food for my spirit. I've had a
it was
frustrating
really,
morning, and
oh, sorry. Yeah.
when I
You're like,
saw this was on my calendar, I said, "Thank God, this is about to turn my day around." And
oh,
already,
good. Okay. All right.
but
And you're
it's
still up for it. Okay. Yeah. No,
yes.
it was like having all four of the women in the show in one room with just the two of
Oh,
us.
yes,
We're like, what are
no.
we doing? What are we doing? And we're like, oh no, we haven't seen each other in a couple of years, so
Oh, that is such a beautiful
let's get this in.
tie-in. What a beautiful reunion.
We
My heart,
channeled everyone and every memory in just a
excellent.
few hours. It's gonna be a fun and exhausting weekend.
And you have earned it. Well deserved, I
Yes.
might add. Well, thank you for
Thanks.
for still showing up for this interview despite your lack of sleep. But friends are good for that, if nothing else. So I'll get
Of
right to it.
course, they're the life's blood. They're the life's blood.
They
And
are.
my sister friends are at the center of all that I do creatively, for sure.
Oh,
For sure.
and what a coincidence we should be talking right after you
Right.
reunite
At
with
this
them
moment.
at this moment about a show that embodied that very thing. And so the 30th anniversary of Living Single is August 22nd, and that is a milestone
Yes,
anniversary. First, how are you
absolutely.
taking all of this in?
I'm just savoring all that it is and all that it means, not only to me, but to the culture. I'm getting so many like DMs and emails from people who are starting to realize how long it's been and
Mm-hmm.
the impending anniversary. So it's really wonderful just savoring
Oh.
it. Things that we don't normally take time to soak in. I'm just doing that right now.
Mm-hmm. And
Reflecting a lot of reflection going on right now.
oh, I
Like, when you look back, it also forces you to, kind of envision what's next for me as an individual and also as a writer creator. So there's a lot of that kind of contemplative time.
For sure, for sure. And with the reflection time, has there also been talks of celebrations or any way to mark the occasion? I know the actors and writers strike may limit that, but
Yes. Well, you've answered the question. So there have been discussions about how to mark the occasion. The occasion will be marked, but of course, some conversations have been stalled as a result of the dual strike with the companies. So, in terms of public celebration, I believe the social media space will probably be the space for that.
okay.
But there at the moment is not a big celebration planned.
Okay.
But we're hoping that perhaps by year's end there will be an occasion for people to gather
Okay.
and to celebrate in person. Also, the date is a Tuesday.
Right.
The exact date is a Tuesday. It also coincides with the 30th anniversary of my engagement to my husband Kyle. So
Oh.
since we're not having a studio planned event, we decided we're going to go get away. So,
Yes.
but
Oh.
we have a thread that we are all on that we chat it up all the time. We chat it up, we chop it up on that thread.
Oh, y'all stayed in
Pretty
touch.
pretty
Yay.
frequently. Oh yeah, yeah. And some of the actors have talked about it in various interviews. We're still true blue, tight like glue.
We are living single. Hey.
We are. It's
So,
not just a title; it's a spirit. It's a thing. It's a, you know, and it's kind of for us, it's not just a moment, it's a movement. It's an energy that we carry with us as a group, which is really beautiful. It's really, really beautiful.
And when you think about the legacy of the show or the cast, what comes to mind for you?
So many things come to mind. Obviously, the cultural impact is at the forefront of what comes to mind. We didn't just set out to make a TV show. We set out to make a universally entertaining but culturally specific experience. And I think we achieved that, But, you don't get to decide what's going to resonate with the audience. The audience decides. And I believe over the last 3 decades, they've decided that it's been significant for them, that it's been life-changing for many, that's been inspirational. And that's incredibly rewarding and affirming as a writer, creator, and just as a Black woman in society.
Mm-hmm. And I know when you first pitched the show, you probably didn't imagine that it would have this type of longevity or, the great 5 seasons that it did have. Do you remember how you first learned that the show was bought and greenlit?
Absolutely. I was actually at a hair appointment as a Black woman.
Fitting. Before anybody gets down to business, we need to get our hair done. I hear you.
I was at a hair appointment, and I got a phone call from David Janulari, the director of comedy development at Warner Brothers.
Okay.
It was May 10th, 1993.
Wow.
And I got a phone call telling me that the show was getting picked up for another 12 episodes in addition to the pilot.
Wow. And who did you run and tell?
I called my mother first, and then I called my girlfriends.
Absolutely.
That show that I wrote about us? It's actually going to be on TV. I'm not going to just be sitting at home in my robe watching the one episode over and over and over again.
Oh, my God. That is funny.
We're going to get to build our own sets. We're going to get to build our own sets because, as it is very, well known, we shot our pilot presentation, our low-budget pilot presentation on the augmented sets of Family Matters.
Oh, that's a fun fact. I didn't know that.
Yeah, go back and check it out. People do talk about it on social media.
Okay.
But because we were considered just a pilot presentation, oftentimes those presentations are only 15 minutes. They have a reduced running time. Mm-hmm. But we did shoot a full 22, 23-minute pilot presentation. But we did it on augmented sets, and we shot it on the Sony lot in Culver City.
That is a fun
to the Warner Brothers
fact.
Lot.
Because I last summer I'd rewatched the whole series, and I do remember the set change from season 1, episode 1 to the rest of it. But I had no idea it was
budgetary.
Right. And we've certainly discussed that before, and we can circle back around to that at the end. But I want to.
There was a similar thing that happened to the Cosby Show. Go back and watch episode 1. They did not live in that same house.
Are these budgeting?
They didn't even appear to be as upwardly mobile as they were in subsequent episodes.
Man,
because it was only a 15-minute presentation. The Cosby Show pilot was originally a 15-minute presentation.
And are these budget restrictions common when there's Black leads on a particular project?
Those budget restrictions are common, quite frankly, more when there are Black leads per series. I think less so now than in the 80s and 90s. Mm-hmm. It's taken some decades for companies to invest in us the way they're currently invested in us. And even still, we do tend to get lower budgets and fewer resources.
Yeah.
We have to advocate for them. But now there are more of us in the know about how that kind of advocacy and push works, what questions to ask, what buttons to push, what other team members to gather.
Right.
So that we get the funding that we need so that our creative vision is as full and vibrant as it deserves to be.
Right.
But there's definitely more of, a creative and financial investment in our stories now than there was then.
Yeah, there has been a turning of the tide.
There has been. I mean, obviously we are at a moment, an inflection point in the business. And so there may be some contraction of the business, and who is on the short end of that remains to be seen. Mm-hmm. So we're all, bracing ourselves, girding our loins.
I hear that. And Yvette Lee Bowser, I am keeping this happy. This is a milestone anniversary. Despite all of that, doggone it, the show lasted. And so the focus... Not
only lasted, it's still having an impact.
Yes.
People are still finding it. I mean, that's really kind of the unexpected gift that the show keeps giving, is not only the audience's interest in continuing to find it and then or watch it and rewatch it,
yes,
but that it continues to inspire and expand minds and entertain. There are a lot of great shows that people are, that have, been on the air over the ages, that people are no longer watching. They've kind of lost interest, and interest seems to be reinvigorated for Living Single, which is such a blessing. Like, again, you can't plan for that. That is something that is completely motivated and dictated by the audience. I mean, there are teenagers now who are, bombarding the cast, tracking them down,
right?
Super excited to see them and hear from them, and
right.
Some of that, and there are people in their 20s who watch the show with their parents who are now watching it again through a different lens and getting something completely different from it.
Yeah, and I do think it's the staying power of the cast that's one part of why people continue to
100%.
Return to the show. Of course, the writing and everything else, but the cast, when you watch the show, is like you're just pulling up a seat in that living room and sitting right there with them. And so
the chemistry of the cast is unrivaled.
Yes. Talk to me about casting. How did you assemble that core six? Any good backstories, drama, or was it all easy peasy as it looks on screen?
It was honestly pretty easy, I'm going to say. There weren't any major battles or blow-ups over who was going to portray whom in the show. Certain people were, I would say, a revelation. For example, I do think that casting Erica was a revelation, because Erica Alexander, as brilliant and talented as she is to this day, still doesn't completely own how hilarious she is.
No, I interviewed her in May, and she was a humble queen. You are right. She does not completely own it.
Right? She does not completely own that. So, but in the auditioning process, she was a revelation to me, because, of course, I had seen her as Cousin Pam on The Cosby Show, but I didn't think that the character was particularly humorous. I think that's probably fairly safe and, universally agreed upon thing. Not that she was humorless, but she wasn't hilarious.
Oh, no.
The character was not.
Absolutely.
Right?
It was like a dry humor sometimes.
Right. So, being new to, the whole process of creating and casting my own show, I actually did something very unusual, which was ask the casting director, Geraldine Leader, if I could sit in on pre-reads. And pre-reads are part of the process where the casting director and casting assistant will read just, thousands of actors, and they will kind of filter out those that they think should and shouldn't be brought in front of producers.
Okay.
But I wanted to learn more about the process, and I wanted to really hone my own, gut and sensibility about casting. And Geraldine very graciously allowed me to sit in for those pre-reads. And some of them were painful. I'm just going to be honest,
Right. It comes with the territory. Yes.
But it really helped me to not only hear the material over and over again to see what was really working and what wasn't working, but also to just kind of open my eyes a little wider and expand my mind a little more broadly to, as to who I would consider in these additional roles, because it is well documented. I created the show for Kim Coles and Queen Latifah, who had a talent holding deal with Fox and Warner Brothers Studios. So with Fox Network and Warner Brothers Studios. So knowing who I wanted those characters to be, I built the ensemble around them, like filled it out. Like I created with them characters that I felt would fit them on, in their bodies and in their voice on screen, and then built the rest of the ensemble around them. I did actually meet with Kim Fields, whom I knew from a mutual friendship, and asked her if she would be in the show. She did have to audition. Wasn't an offer only, but she was Regine in my mind. She was Regine, which is very different from Tootie, but I knew that she was very skilled as an actress. And I really did also feel that, given how new to series television Latifah and Kim Coles were, and narrative storytelling, I wanted to give them, I wanted to surround them with the strongest cast possible.
For sure.
So that was a consideration too. John Henton is someone who I had seen in a pilot the prior season, a pilot that didn't go forward, but I was like, that guy's funny. He's really, really funny, and he just got an energy about him that's just lovable, So in creating the character of Overton, who's just kind of this lovable, simple,
jolly,
wonderful guy, he had that energy. I didn't know if he could really act, but he could, and I found that out in the casting process.
Right.
And T.C. Carson was an actor out of Chicago who sent in a tape. Yes, a VHS tape, people. I'm talking about a VHS.
Yes.
VHS. And I believe, and when I popped that tape in and watched his audition, I was like, that's Kyle. That's Kyle. And I could envision him opposite Erica as Maxine. I was like, they are a powerful and magnetic and beautiful couple. But we didn't do something that I often do now when, I know that there's going to be a history between characters, which is what we call a chemistry read. We didn't do those for this. I just had to kind of rely on my own instincts about how that would pan out. But like Erica and TC share a birthday. Did not know that when I cast them.
Wow. Fun fact. I didn't know that.
But they were always supposed to be like two sides of the same coin.
Right.
So it's very interesting, like how the serendipity that came into play. It's just, my good fortune.
For sure. So 2 quick follow-ups. You mentioned your husband's name is Kyle. Is that at all any relation to Kyle the character? And
definitely. My husband's name is Kyle Bowser. The character's name is Kyle Barker. I was dating Kyle Bowser when I was creating the show.
How much is he like Kyle Barker?
Enough that he now tries to say that there isn't anything.
There's nothing there. That's not me. You're confused.
Although both Kyle and his best friend, both my husband Kyle and his best friend Overton, have jackets from back in the day. They have varsity jackets that have patches on them that say the real Kyle and the real Overton. They have those in their closet. They might have a little dust on them, but they both own those jackets.
Oh, that is so fun. And then I also wanted to know, I saw online and I was hoping you could confirm, is it true that the role of Maxine Shaw was initially just every so often, and then she later became a part of the core group because of...
No.
Okay.
No, that is actually false and an erroneous recollection. No, Maxine was always part of it. In fact, there were, I wanted to create a series that centered on and celebrated women, and there were definitely 4 women. And quite frankly, there had been a model for this in Waiting to Exhale and Designing Women and Golden Girls. You know, like, and also I'm just saying they're just kind of these universal, going back to, you know, ancient Greeks.
Right.
There are these kind of, you know, there are these archetypes that do tend to work together in a group.
Right.
So,
right.
you know, everyone who's read anything or watched anything knows that tended to be a formula, if you will, that works. And then I applied my real life dynamics and desires and girlfriends attributes to these characters.
Right.
Right. And so Maxine was always part of it. And in fact, she actually lived in the brownstone with the other three girls.
Okay.
And that led to a note that I got after I turned in the initial pilot. And so I ended up writing 2 pilots, and that's a whole other story. But Maxine did live in the brownstone, but she, for whatever reason, was intimidating on paper. And so I got this note to take Maxine out of the show. Like, they really loved the script and they really enjoyed the characters, but they asked me to lose Maxine from the show. Yes, this incredibly daring, beautiful, confident, unapologetically Black feminist was apparently intimidating on paper.
Right.
And so I went into survival mode, you know, because I had created Max as an idealized version of myself.
Right. Right.
To not only challenge the status quo, but to provide like a layer of armor for me as a storyteller. You know, she was kind of like this very necessary alter ego of a girl who grew up feeling less than. Like, she was my Sasha Fierce.
Absolutely. Mine as well.
So she was the character that I kind of carefully molded into this woman who rarely had an unexpressed thought and who owned every space that she occupied, and who created a seat for herself at the table, you know, and where there wasn't room at the table, she'd make her own table and invite people to join her, you know, like she was like the OG mentor in me coming out. And it was at that moment in the development process that I kind of found my real voice, and I pushed back on that request to take her out of the show. Yeah. Because I said taking Maxine out of the show would be taking a big part of me out of the show, and I'd rather not do the show at all. So there I was, 27 years old, with the opportunity to have my own TV show, and it was on the line, and I was willing to risk it. Wow. And I was literally becoming Maxine while I was in the process of creating her. Yeah, yeah. And so the creative compromise that came out of that was that because she was a lawyer and she, you know, could afford her own place, we'll place her across the street, but then we'll get more comedy from her always being there, from her being omnipresent, from her using their closet, from her eating their food. And in fact, in the final season, when she and Kyle were at odds because he wanted her to move to London, it's a really funny.
I remember. I'm with you. Go ahead.
I rarely do this because I'm just like laughing at my own work, but it just cracks me up. It's this really funny moment, but also this lovely callback to an earlier episode where they were robbed, and it was an episode called "Burglar of the House," and Khadijah and comes down with her nunchucks. Yes. So after Kyle and Max have their kind of big face off about whether he's gonna stay or she's gonna move to London, she goes over and just wrecks their apartment.
I remember
tearing things up and busting things up, and it's just like, why can't you do this at your place? There was like almost everything that was monumental or milestone in her life she did at their place. She referred to having sex at their place, you know. But I mean, she obviously had some at her place and that kind of thing. But she had a very full life in that brownstone because that was what was intended from day one. Yes. And I decided to just milk more comedy out of it. And I've also had friends who are very omnipresent, friends and family. Like, my place is the gathering place. Right. It's the place where there's home and hearth and humor and food, and that just tends to be where people would gather. So,
wow. That is a gem.
To use that.
Yeah, and it puts more context to when Regine would always be kicking her out. You don't live here. This is our apartment. Someone should tell Regine, well, actually, originally.
Well, wait a second. But then, harken back. Well, see, I'm a big fan of what we call using all parts of the buffalo. So go back and watch the 100th episode. The 100th episode, remember, they were roommates. When we flash back to the 100th episode, we flash back to something that was part of the original pilot story, which was Sinclair moving to New York.
Yeah, from Minnesota.
Moving to New York. And Khadijah comes in from her night job of delivering.
Oh, yes. And Max
Regine and Max rolling down the stairs in a brawl. One of the funniest things ever.
Oh, God.
Regine had on her like Rhythm Nation Janet Jackson look.
Totally.
Hilarious. I'm sorry.
No, that was good content. I'm visualizing it as you're talking about it.
Right. But it was so easy to break the 100th episode because I was like, I'm going to speak to the original premise. I'm going to speak to the original configuration.
Yeah.
And a nod also to the original pilot script that I wrote.
Wow. You go, Yvette Lee Bowser. I like how you did that. Did you hear me? That's what the people say these days. I like how you did that. Speaking of specific scenes, y'all did that. And it does not go unnoticed. The care, the intentionality of how you approached it. I mean,
the road to success and impact is rarely straight, right? It's rarely a straight one. We had plenty of dips and hurdles to overcome, but
y'all did that. I'm gonna keep saying it.
We did that.
Y'all
did that. No, we did that. No, it's so funny. I mentioned my early days in a different world room with Susan Fales, and I talked about how she and I, along with other collaborators, really kind of created a very indelible cultural moment. And I was like, we did that. We did that. I had to say that to her. She was there in that moment when I received the Patty Chayefsky Award. But I had to shout her out and say, we did that. As baby writers, we did that. And I didn't share that anecdote to brag. I shared that to inspire, to let every single person who has an idea, who has a work ethic, to put themselves, their life stories out there for scrutiny.
Yeah, for sure.
But also to tell our story, that you too can do it. That's why I share any of what I share.
Right.
If I can do it, so can you.
Right.
Yes, there's work involved. There's talent involved. There is serendipity and luck involved. But when they all come together, you can create a legacy that lasts decades.
Yeah. I have 3 last questions. Thank you for being so generous with your time. This is like a Black woman hug for me, so I am enjoying every second.
I'm glad you feel the hug because that is certainly my intention in the world. Like we really did set out to proliferate joy. That is huge for me. That is huge for me. That I am a purveyor of joy and laughter. And the show's primary intention is to proliferate joy and to know that it is still lifting people to this day. It warms my heart. It makes me cry, which I do in every interview.
Oh, no, you've earned it, though. 'Cause
my eyes are watering at the moment. So, it's just, this is my ministry.
Yes.
This is my ministry, and to live in one's purpose is the greatest gift of all.
Amen. So you recalled some specific scenes, which shout out to you after 30 years. That's what's up. I also had a specific scene to ask about.
Oh, did you?
Nothing nefarious.
I don't know if I prepared.
But there is a stir on social media of a clip from the final scene of the series finale.
The only thing that has not changed is the love I have for all of y'all.
Wait.
Cheers. Cheers.
Did she just say what I thought she said? Hold up. I'm going to run it back.
Cheers. Cheers.
I know y'all heard it. I know you did.
Dana did that.
That was an ad lib?
Yes. Yes, and I'm using the phrase that we've been talking about. Dana did that. And I mean, I love her for it. And I will say, as a person who really prides herself in noticing the details, it's like I get both compliments and criticism from friends and family and foes about how, what a critical eye I have.
Mm-hmm.
I missed that.
Really? I
missed it in the show, in the edit. I've certainly seen that moment.
Wow. So when did you discover it?
When someone posted it on social media, I was like, ooh, okay. The internet is undefeated.
Period.
I mean, they will call out other people, other shows that have borrowed, inspired, all kinds of things, comparisons. The internet is undefeated.
It will find it, honey. Okay.
It will find it. And I love that the internet found that moment. Honestly, I will say that had I noticed it,
mm-hmm.
I would have left it in the show.
Yeah.
And hoped that no one else noticed it. Actually, a moment left on screen, which actually kind of is a very current moment, right? Because
mm-hmm.
There was no saying of that word. I mean, even on episodes of Blackish, we've said the word and bleeped the word. Mm-hmm. People have found a way to cope with the existence and use of that word. But yeah, I mean, like, that moment was ahead of its time.
Yeah, it was. So one of the through lines of the show, and there are many, but the one I'm thinking most of is the multiple versions of Black love. You have the romantic love, you have the friendship love, you have parent-child love when we see Queen Latifah's real mom come on and play her mother.
And
Kim Fields, yes. Can you talk to me about the representation of Black love in its expansive, non-monolithic form?
Oh wow, that's a big question. I'm gonna make it smaller.
Go ahead. Yes.
I'm not only a purveyor of joy, but I am obsessed with love. And as there was at the time a dearth of representation of Black female relationships and enviable friendships in general.
Yes.
There was a dearth of Black love on television, and so my creating the show with the intention of those two couples ultimately, finding each other and defining their own particular kind of love, because love is not monolithic either. Like, we're not monolithic. Our love is not monolithic.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very intentional, as you said. And I wanted, with Sinclair and Overton, I wanted to show kind of the joy and whimsy and simplicity that love can have, and the genuine affection that, characters or people can have for each other from the very beginning, and the main conflict, of course, for them came from them trying to figure out how to be together while their instincts were frequently getting in their own way. So theirs was an interesting kind of slow burn, baby steps to the inevitable.
It was beautiful, and then, too. I love a slow burn.
Thank you. And then, kind of the friend, the enemies to lovers dynamic was one that I wanted to explore through Max and Kyle and their very contentious flirting with, like, just really kind of dissecting and then building a love story between two incredibly self-possessed and strong-willed people who, for whatever reasons, have kind of each told themselves that that mushy, gushy, ooey gooey love isn't the kind of love that they need, but they do, because I think we all do need that. We all need that. And it is very much modeled after, but a hyperbolic version of my relationship with my husband, Kyle, to this day. Mm-hmm. Again, he will not admit his part in it, but we go toe to toe very passionately, with each other on a variety of things. And we literally love and argue with the same passion, but get back to this wonderfully, love-centered and grounded place of making it work and putting love into our relationship with each other and our family and friends.
Yes.
And it was so, I keep using the word gift, but what a gift that I was able to write and produce a show where a character who was, a version of me, to an extent, was pregnant and carrying the child of her lover, who was Kyle, when I was literally pregnant with my first child.
Shut up. What?
I was carrying Kyle's baby. Like Max was carrying Kyle's baby on screen, and Yvette was carrying Kyle's baby in real life.
What a beautiful
when the show ended, I was about to give birth.
Wow.
To my firstborn. Yeah.
And
so I just do these. I love stories that come from real life. Those are my favorite stories to tell. I read all kinds of stories and genres, and watch all kinds of movies and other stories. But the kind that I like to tell are basically ripped from the pages of my diary or the people that I know. And I just love when people come into the room and share their personal anecdotes or pain or pleasure, and we find a way to put that on screen and also make people, laugh and sometimes think.
Right. So I have been a real advocate for new seasons, a movie version, something of Living Single. First, how did you first learn that the show wasn't being renewed for a 6th season? And will there ever be some type of reboot, movie, additional season, something of Living Single?
Well, we didn't actually get an official call. It just kind of came to an end. We shot the final scene of that final and 13th episode of season 5. And we never actually got a call that it wasn't coming back. We just kind of knew. We actually did a little behind the scenes joke that I won't talk about.
Okay. Fair enough.
We actually shot a little moment that kind of spoke to the fact that it was not being said to us, that no one was telling us what was happening.
Why? Why not
if
just
you remember,
say it?
Khadijah closes the door on the brownstone.
Yes.
And a little nod to Mary Tyler Moore finale, but we did a little something that we have on film that just amused us. It was just our little inside moment, and we'll keep it inside. It was for us in the studio audience only that night. And
okay.
So hopefully, if you reference it, the cast and the crew and whoever might have been in the audience that night will remember
They'll know.
what we did. But
well, I hope one day it comes out.
We made light of it. That's what we do. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you take the pain and turn it into humor and process it. It's just easier to digest.
For sure. I hear that.
It's just a way for us to, I always love to use, humor as a way to reveal our humanity. And sometimes it also is just a way to reveal and share our hurt. And so we were hurt by the way we were kind of unceremoniously canceled. But we did at least have the opportunity to shoot what felt like a final episode. I mean, I've been part of series that didn't get that farewell that they had earned.
Yeah.
I did one series where we were told we were being picked up, and so we did a cliffhanger, and it ended up being a series ending cliffhanger. People still ask me, what would have happened? I'm like, what would you have liked to have happened? Imagine that. That's what happened. And even a show as amazing and impactful as A Different World didn't get its proper farewell.
I'm still not over that one.
I know.
Yeah.
Right. It was still smarting from it, we'll say. It still hurts.
Yes.
No one talks like that but me. We're still smarting from that. I own it. I just own it. But we at least did get to kind of wrap it up. You know, Regine got her happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Khadijah and Scooter found a way back to each other in that final episode.
I know. I was actually
so
upset
was
about that. I wanted Khadijah and Alonzo, but I know I'm in the minority there. I own it.
That's okay. He was a good guy.
He was
a really good guy.
But
and I love that episode where she's between the two of them. That's one of my favorite episodes. Max and Kyle end up in that Barker Lounger.
Yes.
I will, you know, with all due humility, dub that classic.
Oh, absolutely. No, it's one of my favorites as well.
That's pretty iconic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Alonzo, he was crafted to be that guy.
Yes. Wow.
And it was fun to explore all those relationships,
yes.
all those love stories, all those different iterations of Black love, all the people that they encountered, you know, the guys, the women.
Yes.
It was really a blessing. And I will say that I'm very hopeful that there will be more living single in the future.
Woo! Yes! That's great news, Yvette Lee Bowser. That's great news.
Well, we'll see what it looks like, but I'm hopeful.
Yay. Thank you.
I'm saying they can watch the original 118 episodes
on
certain platforms.
Yes, it's on Hulu.
People don't
That's where I watch
know where
it.
to find them. It's on Hulu and Max.
Oh, it's on Max too? Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And maybe it'll be in some other places, but
okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
I think when you create something that is intended to be a love letter and you pour love into it over time, what I found is that you continue to get love back over an extended and unexpected period of time.
That's right. I believe in that too.
What is coming back to all of us who, you know, conspired and collaborated to make this, you know, groundbreaking show is coming back to us all these years later. And for all of this time.
Yes.
It's been amazing to see how it hasn't dissipated, but it is definitely experiencing a resurgence, if you will, right now.
Yes.
That's remarkable and timely.
Yvette Lee Bowser, thank you. I insist on saying your full name because you're on my Mount Rushmore for TV, and I'm like, doggone it, I'm interviewing her. I'm using the full name, but
okay, that's who I am. That's who I am.
Not just
born Yvette Denise Lee, but Yvette Lee Bowser. That's who I am.
Yes,
that's who I am.
But thank you.
That
not
little
just
woman on a windmill.
Is that you?
That is me. That is me. It's actually me.
I try to end the interview and then you drop new gems that I have to know more about.
That is me in a little hot pink suit.
Go ahead. Well, you keep spinning the wheel and putting out more content.
I will.